Hey everyone, welcome back to the lab. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to deserialize JSON with case-insensitive properties in F# using System.Text.Json. So JSON serialization and deserialization is a common plumbing task in modern web services. This is how most of the internet talks to each other, usually using JSON. If you're not using like an RPC thing, that's just kind of how it is. Now, .NET's primary libraries for JSON handling are mostly geared towards C# because, C# is like a top 5 language and F# is like not. So most of these things are built towards C#. And this means that using them in F# is sometimes a little bit finicky and a little bit lacking documentation. Especially finicky due to kind of where we're changing boundaries, right? And the way F# does things, the way its data models are set up, is often different than the way that C# wants to do things because they're just different languages with different kind of design values. And so in this post, we're going to go over a very simple example of how to deserialize JSON in F# such that the cases of the JSON properties don't need to map to cases of your model, which is typically what you're going to want. One quick shout out, if you want to build full stack F# web apps, you can spin up a full stack F# app in minutes with Cloud Seed, which is my F# project boilerplate, which I use to start most of my web projects. All right, let's get on to deserializing JSON with F#. So for this example, we're going to use a model and JSON with mismatched property cases to kind of prove to you that this works. So for the model, we're just going to have all Pascal case, every word capitalized. I personally prefer Pascal case for my properties just because it's what I'm used to, and I think it looks fine. And then for JSON, we're going to use various cases to prove it handles all of them fine. And so here we're going to have a simple script that attempts to deserialize raw JSON into our data model. This is down here, which we'll go over. And I also have it on Replit so that you can actually play around with it, change it up, see how it works. And so for this, we're going to utilize JSON serializer options to configure System.Text.Json's JSON serializer. And we're going to be using the property name case-insensitive option set to true to get the case-insensitive property behavior that we want. And so here's the code. It's pretty short. And I'm just going to hop over into Replit because we get better syntax highlighting, and then I can run it and show you. Okay, so hopefully you can see this. And now we're in Replit, so we can run this and stuff. And so here we're just opening system and System.Text.Json. And here we have our type that we want to deserialize to, okay? So we've got Pascal case, camel case, all caps case, alternating caps case, and snake case. And we can see that this is mirrored here in the JSON string, which we will be trying to deserialize into this type. So we got Pascal case, camel case, all caps case, alternating caps case, and snake case. And you can see that these are all using different cases. And so when we run this, it's going to create this JSON string. It's going to create our serializer options here. So we're creating options, and then we're mutating the property name case-insensitive value to true so that we can get this case-insensitive behavior. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get the output data here by saying JSON serializer.deserialize. We're going to give it the type we want it to map to, the JSON string, and then the options here to configure it. And then we're going to print it out what we've got. So let's run this and see what happens. Okay, so we just ran it and we got the output here. So we can see hello world. And then we've got the deserialized data here, which is coming down from here. And so you can see that, Pascal case, camel case, all caps case, alternating caps case, all of these are mapped correctly. And so we can obviously see that this property is working. Now, one thing I want to call out, which is an interesting part of integrating with some of .NET's built-in libraries, is we get here snake case equals to null. And this might, change or be different than what you might expect to happen, right? So we got snake case here and we got snake case here. Why is it not mapping? Well, the simple answer is because, the difference here is not capitalization. We actually have a character difference here, so that's why it's not mapping. But I think the thing that I really want to point out here that's very dangerous when you're integrating with some of these C#.NET libraries is that we get a null here. And this is not something we expect, right? We expect this to be a string, and we expect this to be required, and thus we actually would expect an exception for this to happen. But this is not the case with JSON serializer out of the box. There are ways to change your properties to make them required, though these work well in C#. I have not gotten them to work well in F# myself. And so when you're working with this stuff, you might get things like this, where you get a null in a place where it's not supposed to be possible to have a null. And now this causes hard to track down bugs and stuff because, our type system says it's a string, but obviously that's not the case here. So just something to call out. We're not going to go deep into how to resolve this or anything, but I just wanted to show you this because this is a common pattern of breakage, and I run it into it myself often because I'm like, this isn't supposed to be null, and yet it is. And again, back in my post, the link to the replit's here if you want to play around with that. Next. So F# is an incredible and very fun programming language, but there are often gotchas at the edges where and when it tries to integrate with other technologies with different defaults and ways of doing things. Always be careful when integrating with C# and .NET in particular, as they tend to like mutable OO and nullable values, which kind of is different than the way F# works, and sometimes insidiously different, where it should be impossible for something to happen and yet it happens because it's at the edges. And so oftentimes when we might need to build our own wrapper around these kind of integrations that are checking for these nulls, even when nulls shouldn't be possible, to prevent that from leaking into our system. So a question for you is, how are you handling JSON in your F# code base, and what strategies do you use to make it safe and sane? I think there probably are some common patterns. I know we have some F# libraries that kind of handle this sanity checking for us, but I'm curious to see what other people are doing so you can kind of find simple scalable systems for this to use everywhere. If you like this post, you might also like F# early returns, simple if-else early returns without monads, how I got interested in F#, and might be interested in the HAM stack, a simple scalable tech stack for building modern web apps fast and cheap. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.